Shalom, giving all honor, all praise, and all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rechak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the full tabernacle of David scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. And I want to, bring some verses out, of course, as it relates to, what's going on, over here in the West, where you got, a lot of insurrection. You got the northern tribes, primarily Issachar, probably some Zebulonites, and they're fed up with the government, with Trump's administration and how they're, basically taking undocumented migrants, which happen to be of the northern tribes that are in the country, and they're taking them and banishing them back to their fellow country. And, tensions is high. A lot of people are emotional. People are angry. And, they're resisting the government. They are fighting back with the ICE agents, the federal agents. And because there's so many of them, they have to quell the situation and regulate. So they are sending in more force. They deployed the National Guards. And now they're saying that there's Marines that are being alerted for duty to go and assist with those federal agents against, these protesters or these rioters. That's what they're saying. But when these type of things happen, the media will say one thing, but you got to know that, we can't believe every single narrative that comes from mainstream media, because we know this devil, he doesn't keep it solid. He's scriptures say that they are estranged from the womb as soon as they be born, speaking lies. And it also says in Psalms 144 that, their right hand is the right hand of falsehood. So there's nothing to them to deceive you, to control the narrative. Now, sure, there are a lot of people in the country that are not documented, and, they're allowed to come in, especially through the last administration. They were able to come through, enter into these jobs and climb up positions, get into a higher position at a particular company, a business, restaurant, or whatever. And then once they get in position, they'll turn around and start hiring, their own, and, denying other people that's not of their ethnicity and stuff like that. I can admit to that, not to say that all of them are like that. All right, so you have, different gripes, crime, they bring in that crime element from where they came from, into the country. But, we because Esau likes to generalize and group, everybody in, because they do it to us, so they're going to demonize all the people so that you in the country won't really feel anything for them. You won't really treat them with, humanity, because they are, humanity, and plus they're of the tribes, so we're not going to, act like they're not human like we are. It's inhumane to take people, capture people like you're a dog catcher, trying to capture stray wild animals, putting them in the paddy wagons and, shipping them off. And, you got, couples that are being split, and, the husband or the wife would be sent back to the country while they're left, or even children left stranded without their parents because their parents are getting captured. You had this one Jake, he made a video and he was, really emotional. He was tearing up because, he's at a graduation, and he saw that the Hispanic children that were documented, they walk in the stage and have to see their parents basically run out of the graduation because they're not documented. So he was like, yeah, this is inhumane right here. So, it's a lot of this going on. Then you got Esau, of course. You got the liberal Edomite. They want to stand, with the Hispanic tribes, all right, against the government. Then you got the Edomite nationalists, that's being encouraged to, take pride in your country. Let's take our country back from these illegals. When this devil, you came over here as an illegal, and you committed genocide and conquered and colonized land that didn't belong to you, and now this is what you're doing. So yeah, it's chaotic all across the board. But this is all part of the beginning of the end for this devil, But anyway, I want to play some of this clip right here. All right, from Brightian, and he's basically giving an update on the insurrection in Cali and what's going on, because you better believe Esau, he wants chaos. He needs disorder. All right, and now they're saying that civil war is brewing through this whole situation. All right, and this ain't nothing but problem, reaction, solution. This ain't nothing but pressure from above, pressure from below. Because he's going to send in, not only just more agencies, but also on the other side, he's going to send in these funded groups to add more fuel to the fire. All right. Now, the Lord did say, he come to send fire on earth, but, where will I if it already be kindled? So this is what we're witnessing. So without further ado, I'm going to just start playing this clip right here, and then, we'll move forward.
And yesterday, in case you didn't know, all kinds of left-wing fascist communist groups, they organized assaults on the federal officers, the ICE officers and others, who were attempting to remove some violent criminal illegals from, I believe it was from some detention centers where they were being held. And then the radical left, fascist, communist, whatever groups, I think one of them is called Unión de Barrio, means the neighborhood union. They got together, and basically they're Black Lives Matter of Mexicans.
Come on, man. And we know that all these different groups, these so-called radical groups, they all are set up. They put agent provocateurs in, and they send them on a mission. And that's, once they activate, that's where the chaos starts to spring up. And they influence others that are peaceful protesters, and they go out there and they get physical. And that's where the response comes in, where they need to, where they feel the need to send in more law enforcement. All right, we need more federal agents. We need the National Guard, because it's getting violent, it's getting chaotic. You see, and Esau, he sets this whole thing up. It tells us that in the scripture that, they like to lay snares privately. They say, who shall see us? That's Psalm 64. It's Psalm 64 in verse 1. It says, hear my voice, O power, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. All right. And this insurrection of the workers of iniquity, this is all part of the conspiracy of the wicked, because ultimately, the biggest enemy to the establishment is you tribes, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, which is why you're the most ill-treated. All right. This is why they'll profile you, marginalize you, and want you out of the country or want you locked up, but they'll import the races as South American Edomites. You know, they'll allow Ukrainians to come to the country, and they come here and they get aid, they get help, they get money, they get good living situations as soon as they come over here. All right, when the tribes come through here, they got to get it from the mud. So we're definitely we're the scriptures say that we're an outcast. All right, the nation that no man looks after. We're a nation not desired. So wherever we are, we're not wanted except for our slave labor. To be exploited. If these nations can't exploit us, they don't want us around. That's just how it is, man. We're under that curse. So continuing on, it says, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. All right. And that word for perfect is from the word, the Hebrew word is tham. And it's the exact same word used to describe Jacob. When we go back to Genesis 25, it talks about how you had, one was he was a plain man dwelling in tents. That was talking about Jacob. Esau, he was a cunning hunter. He was a man of the field. Jacob, he was a plain man. When you look that up, it means this word, tham, which means when the Strong's definition, it says morally pious, specifically gentle, dear, coupled together, perfect, plain, undefiled, complete, perfect, one who lacks nothing in physical strength, beauty. That's talking about Jacob. Sound, wholesome, ordinary, quiet sort of person, which our people right now, they not. They've once they integrated with the enemy, they became degenerated. So a lot of these qualities didn't left our people for quite some time, but overall, it described Jacob, who fathered the tribes, with this characteristic. Okay. So ultimately, they shoot in secret at Jake. All right. It says, verse 5, it says, they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? So they set these things up, these events, and this part of the Hegelian dialectic, because in order for them to bring these solutions that they've been working on, that they've been having these secret councils about, they need crisis. In order to accomplish these agendas, they need justification. All right. So they caused these crises, these issues. The last administration led all these people in the country, and then they threw the alley-oop for Trump to get back in. And now look what he's doing in response. That's problem, reaction, solution. All right. We have a migrant crisis in the country. The crime is up. We got traffickers and, all these, whatever. And they say that about just our people. They don't say that about no other nation that comes over here. So now they're sending the National Guard to come after our people now. Right. So this is what they're doing. All right. And using these funded groups, by the government to cause more chaos, to bring more law enforcement. Okay. Now let me do this real quick, because I typed this in. What does pressure from above, pressure from below mean? And it says the phrase pressure from above, pressure from below is often used in political, social, or organizational contexts to describe forces or influences acting on a system group or individual from two different directions. All right, because right now there's the National Guard, you got the Marines getting involved, you got ICE. Those agencies are all being utilized against the people, because the people, they're fed up. All right, they're showing dissatisfactory of this current administration, the president, the governors, the mayors, on their position of migrants. People come over here because they think this place is paved with gold. They think that it's a free country. It's a land of opportunity. So they bring their asses here, thinking that everything is all smooth, and then this is where they come to find out. All right, so they're getting pressure from that end, and then you have these grassroots groups, these funded groups, the Black Lives Matter. You have Antifa and all these other radical groups that's set up, by the Zionists, of course. All right, you had George Soros, who set up Black Lives Matter, and he put 3 dyke black women as the leaders over that movement, and they took those people money when they was generating money. They took it and went and bought homes and stuff. It's just all around corruption, and this is what they can do to lump you all, to into these categories. All right, they place you into a group, and now that you're radicalized, now that you're on a list now, they can actually come and persecute you. They can sign legislation to give them justification to lock you up, to take away your rights. So that's what they're doing. All right, and you better believe these executive orders that Trump came in and signed were already prescribed. It's Isaiah 10 and verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees, that right grievousness which they have prescribed." And that's nothing but the beast, with the 2 head, the 2 horns like a lamb, and speaking as that dragon, or a Draco. And, you should know who Draco is in history, that Athenian lawgiver. All right, very tyrannical. So these decrees, they prescribe it, meaning it's already pre-written, because they already have, all right, a scenario, and they have it planned out on what they want to do in order to be able to carry it out, so that they can enact these different legislations and executive orders. All right, hence problem, reaction, solution. Okay, and it says prescribe, to write, record, to write, inscribe. But we're talking about prescribe, so that means that it's written before. Okay, so they write these things into place, and then they cause the reaction. All right, they cause the issue, then they see the reaction from the people, and then they enforce it. It says to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. All right, and so that's how they set it up. So going back here, it says top down from higher authorities or elites, there's those agencies, and bottom up from grassroots, masses, or lower levels. The Mexican Black Lives Matter getting involved and starting these riots, and now they have to deploy more force. Here's a breakdown. Pressure from above. This refers to influence, control, and demands exerted by those in power, in higher positions of power, such as government officials, corporate executives, or institutional leaders. It often involves policies. Trump coming in and enacting the Aliens Enemy Act of was that 1798? And they've used it before. So if you are considered a alien from an enemy country and you're undocumented, they're gonna basically get you up out of there. All right, and so that's what he enacted when he came in, because they were pushing the narrative that, hey, look, the Venezuelans, they're taking over cities, they're squatting in people's homes, and it was like we didn't know what to believe because some people that lived in them cities, they were telling you, hey, that's cap with the media saying, don't believe that, that's not what's going on. And then, but in the media, you seeing apartment buildings and you seeing gang members, with assault rifles in their hands, and they, in and out of buildings. So it was like, you didn't know what to really believe, but there was definitely a influx of migrants, from south of the border that was definitely coming into the country because you had Biden and Kamala, they wanted to keep the borders open. And you had that whole situation going on at the border. It was a standoff. You had down in Texas. It was a lot going on down there. And we thought that the Civil War was damn near starting then. But now it's looking like this is the beginning of what we all thought. So it says, back reading this, it says, it says it often involves policies, directives, or expectations imposed on those below them in the hierarchy. For example, a government might enforce strict regulations on citizens, and that's, they enacted that particular executive order. And now ICE is after these people. They're being militarized. They're being aided by other federal agencies to round these people up in the streets, going to people's jobs and snatching them out of their jobs. It's getting wild. All right. And then you also have the Insurrection Act. So now, because of the Insurrection Act, is turning into a war zone. Now you got the Marines and the National Guard, getting involved. So this is what they do. They see the reaction of the people. Oh, the people, they're fighting back. Look, they're throwing rocks. Look, they're burning squad cars. Look what they're doing. So through this executive order, now we can actually go and send some more arms. Now we can send some help. It says, or a company CEO might set aggressive performance targets for employees. It says pressure from below. This refers to demands, resistance, or influence coming from the general public, workers, or lower level stakeholders. It often manifests as grassroots movements, public opinion, protests. This is what we're seeing. All right, this is reaction. It says, or collective action pushing for change or accountability. For example, citizens might protest for policy reform, or employees might unionize to demand better working conditions. And then it deals with, political context, workplace context, social movements. Okay. So this is, what's happening. Pressure from above and pressure from below. It's all generated by E.
It is, essentially what this has become now. So they got together and they pulled together hundreds of people, and then they began assaulting, like really assaulting, and throwing large rocks, smashing windshields and burning cars in LA, and also burning some buildings later in the evening. I'm recording this very close to midnight, and I've been watching the footage, and there's a ton of footage of, the clashes happening. Now, the most important news item of the last few hours is that President Trump seized control of the California National Guard and is reportedly deploying 2,000 soldiers to the Los Angeles City region in order to protect law enforcement officials there. And of course, Governor Newsom appears to be supporting all the illegals and opposing Trump, and of course,
and that's all part of the divide. Which we know that, because Gavin Newsom, he's a liberal, and he's a devil himself. He that man, he single-handedly, him along with Nancy Pelosi, they turned California into a complete pile of shit. That state fell of shit, for a while under their position, man. Let me get that in Matthew. This is Matthew 12:25. It says, "And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand." And Babylon is divided over matters like what we're witnessing. Complete division. And this is all part of the fall of Babylon the Great. All this is happening in the country, but yet we got to worry about the government trying to go to war on behalf of Zionist Israel, over Iran, and they want to, stick their nose and, all these other matters. All right. And the leaders of these other nations are looking like, you sure you want to get into further conflict with us? Because look what you got going on back at home. Your citizens are not happy. They're burning shit down over there. But we know how Esau is. He can't, like it says in Habakkuk, he neither keepeth at home. So this is what we're getting right now. And let me get that in Isaiah 19. I want to get it in the GNT. Let me see that. We go to the GNT. And let's get Isaiah 19. And it says, verse 2, it says, "The Lord says, I will stir up civil war in Egypt." And, mind you, we're in that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. All right. So we're in Egypt, modern Egypt, our place of captivity. He said that he will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other and rival kings will struggle for power. And that also coincides with 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter. Matter of fact, and we go to 2nd Esdras 15, also in the GNT. And I want to go to verse 14. It says, "The world and the people in it are doomed. The war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. There will be great political turmoil," is what we're witnessing, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control while ignoring the legitimate government. And because of the result of what's going on, all this chaos, there will no longer be free access to the cities. That's when they're gonna Trump will eventually shut everything down and declare martial law, especially when the guns come out. If there be any firepower from the protesters or the infiltrators, of these different movements that entered into the protests, if it gets more violent where they are actually shooting at these agents or having shootouts with the National Guard, that's when it's war. That's when it's wartime. And they will shut it down, and it will be curfews, and you won't be able to go nowhere without showing your legal documentation, your identification. All right. It's because the struggle for power will bring destruction, terror, and total confusion wherever people live. And that's what we're seeing in LA right now. So now, thus, you got the National Guard activated in LA because of these riots. Okay. And this is what you're going to see all day throughout the press, throughout the media. Okay. But I want to play this video because he actually got the intel that these groups, they entered into the protesting, and that's where it became riots. You know, so now, hey, we got to get all these Hispanics up out of here. Because look, they're violent. They're tearing up our city. You know, and it's the same thing with Jake when Jake gets put down by the Centurion, and Jake go out there and they protest, and then here come these groups that get involved and they infiltrate, and then the rioting pursues. And then that's when Esau be like, all right, let's bring out the boys now. So yeah, Esau, this is his way of drawing you into war. All right. So yeah, we're witnessing the end of this place, man. And it's only going to get worse from here on out. So prepare yourselves. You know, scriptures say, be circumspect, you know, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the times because the days are evil. Okay. So man, with that, I'm going to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Shalom.